last night, get them out. Oh my goodness, that's a long problem. Why, yes, it is. Welcome to your brain getting warmed up. What is wrong with that problem also? It's too long. It's completely out of order. So we're going to have to fix that. So I'm not going to divide by 4 plus a. What am I going to divide by? Is it better if I change the colors? Does that make you feel better about it? Okay. So what are we going to divide it by? A plus 4. What? Yeah, we're switching the order as we write it. A plus 4, okay. And then inside, which one should go first? A to the 5th. And then what? Okay, minus 4a to the 4th, okay. Minus 39a cubed. Minus 29a squared. 8a. Minus 6. What a beautiful problem to start on this fine Friday morning. I love it. Don't you guys love it? Yes, Miss Rice? Marvelous. All right. So, what question do I ask myself first? Yeah, I say a multiplied by what gives me a to the 5th? A to the 4th. So I put a to the 4th on top. And then what do I do with that a to the 4th? Yeah, I multiply it and I multiply it. So I multiply it by each of the pieces in the front. So a to the 4th times a to the 5th. A to the 4th times 4 is 4a to the 4th. Okay. Then what do I do? So I draw the line, and when I draw the line, what do I do to each of the signs? I change them. They are currently positive, so I'm going to minus and minus. Okay, so I'm changing the signs. And then what do I get when I do that? I get 0, and I get negative 8a to the 4th, and I know that I did it right if I get 0. Those should cancel out perfectly. Okay, so negative 8a to the 4th, and I drop down the next term. Okay, now what do I ask myself next? Yeah, so a multiplied by what becomes negative 8a to the 4th? And we want that negative, right? So negative 8a to the 3rd. Okay. So now what do I do? Negative 8a to the 3rd times a is negative 8a to the 4th. Negative 8a to the 3rd multiplied by 4 negative 32a to the 3rd. Okay. And then what do I do? So I draw the line and I change my signs because I'm subtracting. So if I subtract a negative, that makes a positive. If I subtract a negative, that makes a positive. So I draw the line, I change my signs. And so these combine together, a negative 8 and a positive 8, those zero out, which is exactly exactly what we expected. And then what happens to these two? They don't zero out. Negative 7, a to the third, and then what do we do? Okay, don't say it out loud, but I want you guys to figure out what should go on top. Don't say it out loud. I just want you to figure out what should go on top. And here is our hint. Anyone want to share what they put on top? Anyone besides Kaylee? Yes. 7a squared. Negative 7a squared. Perfect. So negative 7a squared. And then what is the next step? We take the top, multiply it in the front, and we write it underneath. So go ahead and do that step. Take the top, multiply it by each term, and write it underneath. Take the top, multiply it, write it underneath. Okay, so when you take the top and you multiply it by the front, what do you get? You get, but what do you get with the cubed? Negative 7a cubed, and then what'd you say about this part? Negative 28a squared. Okay, and then what do we do? Yep, we draw the line, we change the signs. Okay, so our first two terms zero out, which is what we wanted, and then what happens to these terms? Negative a squared, and then we drop down the next one, minus 8a. Okay, go ahead and figure out what should go on top. And then go ahead and take the top and multiply it by the front and line it up underneath. So a should multiply by negative a to make negative a squared. And then when we take negative a and multiply it by the front, we get negative a squared minus 4a. And then what do we do? Draw the line, change the signs. The first part zeroes out, which is what we expected. What happens to the second part? Negative 4a. Then what do I do? Bring down the negative 6. Okay. And then what should the last thing on top be? Negative 4. So negative 4 multiplied by the front is negative 4a. Negative 4 multiplied by positive 4. It's not a. Negative 16. And then what do we do? Draw the line, change the signs. Okay. And then what do you get? You get 10. All right. So, anyone remember what we do with our leftovers? Yes. You're right, as a fraction, right? Now, is this 10 positive or negative? Positive. So do I write plus or do I write minus? Plus. So I'm going to say plus 10 over a plus 4. And that's my finished answer. Whew. I mean, that was a long problem. They're not all that long, right? Okay. Well, let's go ahead and try a shorter one. Yes, Miss Rice, this is the best day ever. I love long division. What? 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 Henry, are you covering your eyes because you love it so much? Okay, let's try this one. We're going to do negative 30x minus 4x squared plus 24 plus 4x to the third divided by negative 3 plus x. So that's not as bad. The other one went up to the 5th power. This one only goes up to the 3rd. All right, go ahead and set up the problem. So don't say it out loud, just set it up. Yep. X minus 3. What'd you guys get underneath? Okay. Perfect. I like that. Go ahead and see if you can get it started. So here's my hint. We got to write something on the top. This is my hint. Right here, my fingers pointing is my hint. Were you waiting for the hint? You're like, she's just sitting there. She's not giving us anything. All right, what did you write on top? 4x squared gets written on top, so we were saying x multiplied by what becomes the 4x to the third. Okay, what's the next step? Yeah, so we're going to multiply it by the first two terms, and then we're going to line it up underneath, right? Okay, so go ahead and do that part. So these problems are long, but they're repetitive, which means if we can figure out the process, we can do anything. I could give you one of 27, an exponent of 27, you could still do it. You'd hate your life, but you could do it. I wouldn't grade it, because that would be terrible, but you could do it. So what you guys got? Is that what we got? Okay, and then we draw the line, change the signs. The draw the line, change the sign part is where most students make their mistakes. If they forget to change the sign, it will mess up the whole problem. And if you make a mistake up here, let's say somebody forgot to change their sign right here, the rest of the problem is wrong. So don't forget that part, okay? Draw the line, change the signs. You got to make sure that you remember that part because it stinks when you mess that part up. All right, when we subtract, what do we get? 0, which is a good sign, and 8x squared All right, go ahead and do the next step. I want you to do the full step all the way to the blue part, the whole thing. Figure out the number on top, multiply it by the front, draw the line, change the signs, subtract, do the whole thing. I know you're done. Is it because you love it so much? You're like, I can't wait to see what the remainder is. Nick, what remainder did you get? 10. Negative 210. Did you get negative 210? Somebody's wrong. What'd you get? A remainder? 6? Oh. I haven't done it yet. I'm not sure. It is 6 though. Shoot. I got the answer key right up here. All right, are we ready to see what it should be? Yeah. So we should have plus 8x, and then 8x times x is 8x squared. 8x times negative 3 is negative 24x. And then we draw the line and change our signs. Minus, plus, and we get 0, which means we did it right, and then we get negative 6x. We get that? Okay, go ahead and do the next step. All the way from beginning to end, all of it. Write the number on the top, multiply it by the front, subtract, see what you get. Henry, what remainder did you get? Let's go. Let's go. I mean, it could be the remainder. Yeah. Yeah. Right. And that's what we were saying, right? Is one little wrong sign messes up the whole thing. You get 210 instead of 6. And it's all over. All right. What did we put on top? Negative 6. And then we get negative 6x plus 18. And then we draw the line, change the signs. And so we get 0 like we expected. And what's 24 minus 18? 6. Okay, so how do I finish with this part right here? Plus 6 over x minus 3. Okay. You guys want to see a fun magic trick? I think you might like it. I think you might like it. You need a calculator. So go ahead and grab a calculator. Magic. All right. Do you see that this is x minus 3? So if we had the factor x minus 3 and we were solving for it, we'd be like, oh, x equals positive 3, right? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this. 4 times positive 3 to the third minus 4 times positive 3 to the second minus 30 times positive 3 plus 24. Go ahead and type it in. Tell me what you get. Okay, we're going to try some magic again. No. What's the opposite sign? Minus 4. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to type negative 4 to the fifth minus 4 times negative 4 to the fourth minus 39 times negative 4 to the third minus 29 times negative 4 to the second minus 8 times negative 4 minus 6. What do you get? 10. So when you plug in the number, what does it give you? Not the answer, the remainder. That's a nice way to check your answer on a test when you're not sure if you did the long division right, is you can go ahead and just plug the number in and then see if it matches your remainder. And the odds that it matches your remainder when you got it wrong are not good. So when you didn't get 210, you'd be like, oh, I did that wrong. I gotta go back and check something. Does that make sense? So when you plug in the opposite sign of the number to the equation, you should get the remainder as the answer. If you don't, you had a mistake somewhere. Does that make sense? That's something special called the remainder theorem. We're going to work with that specifically another day, but we're going to learn a shortcut before we do it, okay? So that's a good way today when you're doing the long division to check your answer, even though we can't plug the rest of it in a calculator, right? Because your calculator doesn't do this. You can't plug this into your calculator and get an answer. I mean, you can type in all the A's, but my calculator has A equals 0, so if I plug in with all the A's, my calculator is just going to plug 0 in for all the A's and give me whatever numeric answer it can find, okay? So since your calculator doesn't do this, the very least we can do is plug the number in and see if it equals 10. And then if it equals that remainder, then we can feel at least good about our answer, okay? All right, we're going to do one more, and then I'm going to let you guys practice. So here is the very last example problem. Nobody had like mind blown by that. I'm a little disappointed. No, Miss Rice, it's cool. Oh, 49. That's supposed to be a 49. Minus 49p minus 10 divided by p minus 7. I gave them to you in order this time. Can anyone tell what's weird about this problem? Yeah, it's missing the squared. All right, we plug in a 0 for that. So in the front, I'm going to put p minus 7. And then inside, I'm going to put p to the third plus 0p squared. So if it doesn't have it, I have to put a 0 in. And then I can do minus 49p and then minus 10. All right, go ahead and do the first step from start to finish. So figure out the number on top, multiply it by the front, line it up, subtract, do the whole first step. Hmm, yeah. You kind of ignore it because you're taking the number on top and you're multiplying it by these two numbers. And then you line it up underneath, and so the 0 ends up never doing anything. Yeah. It just gives you a spot to line up the next term. Yeah. Anyone want to share what they put on top? So p squared, when we multiply by the 2 in the front, we get p to the third, and we get negative 7p squared. And so this negative 7p squared is why we needed the 0p squared, because we needed to have a spot to put that when we multiplied. If we didn't put the 0 in there, then we would have our stuff lined up with unlike terms, and we would probably get it wrong. Okay? All right, so now I go ahead, draw the line, change the signs. Minus, plus, and you should have gotten 0, which tells you that you did it right. And then you should have gotten positive 7p squared. Go ahead and do the next step from start to finish. So figure out what should go on top. Multiply it by the front. Line it up underneath. Draw the line, change the signs. So what should go on top? 7p, and it's positive, so I'm going to go ahead and put plus, okay? And then what did you get when you multiplied it? That's 49p. Okay, then what do we do? Draw the line, change the signs. You get 0 and 0. We've never had that happen before. Yeah, just drop down the negative 10. Yeah, and then that's the remainder. So now we can go ahead and just say, okay, that's the remainder. I must be done. So minus 10 over p minus 7. All right, and what can I do to check and make sure my answer is probably right? Plug in positive 7. So I'm going to have 7 to the third. You can do the 0 or not do the 0. It won't make a difference because the 0 is going to 0 out anyway. Minus 49 times 7, minus 10. Oh, minus 10. I don't hear any clicking. Sarcastic clicking is my favorite. Did you get negative 10? Ta-da! So we're probably right. Feel good about that.
Wasn't that so sarcastic clicking before?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was. That's exactly what we were hearing in the room. Yeah, sarcastic clicking. All right. I know that you guys love activities so much when I take a worksheet and I just put it on little squares and call it an activity. So here's what I want from you. Blank sheet of paper out with your name on it.